Hello, hello, and welcome to another Thursday evening edition of Grown Folks Business. Welcome to first time viewers, and welcome back to some people we haven't seen in a while. And that's Brother Mike. Hope all is well. I know you've been a busy man. Football season wrapped up for you, I believe, and that allows you the time to grace us with your magnificent presence. And we welcome you, man. Glad to see you back in the space. Um, Greatly appreciated, appreciative of your what you do, everything that you do, and that you make time for us in these squares. Bob, good to see you as always. Meryl, glad you could make it. And Danya, always appreciate you being on the wheels of steel, keeping us flowing. Um, Tonight's topic of conversation is do we value the thinkers? There's too many voices and not enough contextualization. And for my purposes, contextualization is something that I do as a historian. You try to make sense of the facts, try to organize things and construct them in a way that provides context for whatever your argument is or whatever analysis you're doing on any given subject. So, do we value the thinkers? Not enough, well, too many voices and not enough contextualization. So, in this day and age, everyone has a microphone. Everyone has an ability to communicate some perspective or some idea. I think we've morphed into a society that uh, is relentless in pursuits of some things that are just non-starters and not beneficial to us as a overall community. Um, Tonight, I had the opportunity and pleasure to go and listen to a lecture from someone I think of as a great thinker. And I appreciate Bob for providing me with the avenue to do so. Cornell West, Dr. Cornell West spoke at Wake Forest University earlier today. It was afternoon. Um, and it was a really good, high quality lecture. He's somebody I hold in very high regard for what he does in the public sphere. He's consistent, he's persistent, and everything that he uh, speaks about is from a place of love. He is a devout Christian. He's a pastor also. So there are elements that don't necessarily always fall into line with what everyone's thinking, but at his core, he's all about um, the love that we should be giving to each other. And that came across very well in his speech. But he is someone I think of as a thinker. Um, we need to value people like that a little bit more, people that wrestle with ideas concerning the human condition. I do have a clip that I'm going to play, and this clip is of Dr. Cornell West speaking about another magnificent thinker, and that's James Baldwin. Uh, I think the clip pretty much speaks for itself. Um, it's pretty insightful. It is not so much about the content that is being discussed, although it is worthy of your attention. It is about what I'm speaking of tonight. Do we value the thinkers? Uh, I'll let the clip play, and we'll come back on the other side of it and have a conversation. And again, welcome back, brother Mike. So let me cue this clip, and I'll see you on the other side of it. I'm doing it. It's just dragging really slow, but we'll get it. Here we go.
Baldwin was never popular. People say, how can that be? He was a bestseller. Everybody. No, not at all. Read Soul on Ice. Elvis Cleveland. Trashing ball. Read Julian Mayfield's essays on ball. Julian Mayfield was an anti-colonial, anti-imperialist leftist. Trashing ball. The only people who actually fell in love with Baldwin early on were liberal whites, disproportionately liberal Jews who facilitated his career at that moment. But what did Baldwin do? He broke from the establishment. He broke from his liberal friends. He broke from his Jewish friends.
I don't know whether the labor unions and their bosses really hate me. That doesn't matter, but I know I'm not in their union. I don't know if the real estate lobby is anything against black people, but I know the real estate lobbies keep me in the ghetto. I don't know if the Board of Education hates black people, but I know the textbooks I give my children to read and the schools that we have to go to. Now, this is the evidence. You want me to make an act of faith, risking myself, my wife, my woman, my sister, my children, on some idealism which you assure me exists in America, which I have never seen.
This is in many ways the Baldwin moment, and it's primarily because we know here's somebody who's committed to intellectual integrity, committed to a moral honesty. Remember, he says at the end of Notes of a Native Son in the introduction, all I ever want to be is an honest man and who, like Hemingway, endures. Now, you see, in an age of mendacity and criminality, which is our own, just telling the truth and having integrity is revolutionary. It's subversive. It's countercultural. Baldwin comes back, bringing this rich tradition of eloquence, truth-telling, witness-bearing, soul-stirring writing.
Everything now, we must assume, is in our hands. We have no right to assume otherwise. If we, and now I mean the relatively conscious whites and the relatively conscious blacks, if we do not falter in our duty now, we may be able, handful that we are, to end the racial nightmare and change the history of the world. If we do not dare everything. The fulfillment of that prophecy, recreated from the Bible in songs by former slaves, is upon us. God gave Noah the rainbow sign. No more water. Fire next time.
Fire next time. Trump is the fire this time. Come, it's here. Neo-fascism is unfolding before our very eyes, undermining sources of opposition, be it press, be it courts, be it university, feeling as if it's inevitable that you have to move in the right-wing populist, xenophobic, nationalist, neo-fascist direction. That's the fire this time.
Colonel West, you live among your students and listen very, very carefully. What are they hearing in James Baldwin today?
They're hearing someone who refused to allow his fire to be dampened by overwhelming bleakness and darkness. And that's a beautiful thing. You know, and I know the only American citizen who could vote for under 30, my dear brother Bernie Sanders, would be in the White House rather than a neo-fascist Trump. That's a sign of hope. It's a sign of deep hope.
I think that really you need to be obsessed with the future of the young. Because we, the elders, are responsible for that. And I myself, I think, I learn a lot from young people because young people are unlike people my age. In the generality, I was on the road really to find out who was true with people who were telling me that the youth of America had become hopelessly apathetic and middle-aged and dead. There are a great many things in people I met, and I've been on the road for a year, but none of those things. The truth, I think, is that their elders have betrayed them.
And what I love about them is, because as you know, I'm highly suspicious of the discourses of hope. I think that that's too abstract. The question is not having hope. The question is being a hope. Having hope is still too detached, too spectatorial. You got to be a participant. You got to be an agent. You keep on pushing, Curtis Mayfield said. Be a force for good, Coltrane said. Mississippi, goddamn, says Nina Simone. That ain't having hope. That's being a hope. courageously bearing witness regardless of what the circumstances is, because you're choosing to be a kind of person of integrity to the best of your ability before the worms get your body. Boom, that's it. That's blues. Beautiful tradition.
Keep doing it. Thank you. You mean the world to us.
Well, you mean the world to me and many others, though, Brother Chris. You've been at it for a long time. What a force for good you are, though, man. I'm telling you, and all the folk who work here with you.
All right. So back on the other side of that, I hope it came through fairly well for you all. And again, it was not so much about the content; it's about the appreciation. It's about the recognition of how important it is to, in my opinion, be a thinker, to contribute in some form or fashion to society's betterment. So watching and listening to Dr. West a few hours ago, one of the things that he highlighted was the lack of soul in the music that is being produced today and that is supposedly originating in the black community. I don't think it's all originating from the black community, but it is definitely taking the lead in terms of what's being elevated and recognized in this country. So, with that understanding, when I ask, do we value the thinkers? Um, he noted Nina Simone. Uh, Mississippi Goddamn is a heck of a song. If you ever get a chance, listen to it. She's speaking specifically uh, about the arts visited upon Black Americans, specifically in Mississippi and in the South in general. But it's a hardcore song that's saying something. She's stirring something up. So appreciating the thinkers does not resign itself to those who dwell on college campuses and in the academies of learning. It's to anyone that contributes to our betterment, including someone like Nina Simone, Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou, and so on and so forth. So with that in mind, I'll bring it up to the group and space. Uh, do we value the thinkers? Um, why not? Unpack your reasoning. You can throw in somebody that you do think of a certain way and that you do value for whatever reason. But take your time, unpack the answer. I'll start with you, Meryl. You seem like you got something right on the frontal lobe.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. I mean, excuse me if I go if it seems like I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but like I'm comparing like there's one thing that speaks to me when Cornel West is talking about like the music piece about lacking like substance. I think about like growing up and not being a big fan of and we probably even talked about this before, kind of like the early type of hip hop that was just kind of like beat 808s and just kind of beats and stuff, or like that Sugar Hill Gang that was just kind of like I'm going to the store and all that type of stuff. It just didn't speak to me because I was into Prince, because I kind of liked um or just other artists where just I felt like like somebody was like writing a song that spoke to me. And then so when I really got into like hip hop, like the stuff I really liked was like Public Enemy, man, because I felt like Chuck D was like saying something, um but it didn't have like a real catchy beat, and so like a lot of kids weren't into it because it seemed too serious. And so I think there definitely are groups of people who kind of appreciate thinkers, or people who are, going deeper than just, entertainment for entertainment's sake. But I'm also thinking about like the struggle in community. Because I get a chance not only with the stuff I get a chance to do at NC 100, but because of the work I get to do at Rural Forward, I'm in so many different communities where people are starting organizations and doing nonprofit work. And because there are so many systemic ills that have plagued our country and our communities, that just this these huge hills to climb over. The only thing that folks kind of have energy for is like this real direct service. Like I can do this real I you know I can put some food into a book bag, or I can, uh, and which is important. But because like to do like that heavier, deeper work is just so heavy, and you're not going to see the results. I can see somebody benefit from this direct service because there's something you got this immediate need. And so that's, but to do the longer term stuff, I got to think a little bit longer, and I'm not going to be able to see the fruit of it. So I think sometimes people, especially like if you are in a marginalized space and you're just like, man, I don't have the energy to be, paying too much attention to all this long thinking. James Baldwin saying some really cool stuff. Cornel West is saying some real cool stuff. Like, that's cool, brother. Like, I get it. Like, we preaching to the choir. I get it. I get it. That doesn't change my circumstance today. I don't want to hear that because it's not changing my circumstance. I'm born in poverty. There's a 96% chance I'm going to die that way. So your opining from up here, up yonder, could sound like a bunch of shit to me, to somebody who's like in a different space. It won't necessarily resonate with me, even though I know what you're saying is the truth. And I know that you're pushing for a greater good, but it's not going to impact my life today or tomorrow. And it may change somebody's mind, and it may not. So like, I get that. So I kind of understand where it comes from, where there's not a deep appreciation sometimes for the folks that are, digging deep philosophically, or talking about some of the ills or kind of our systemic issues or how people should be. But we're dealing with a tension between the world as it is and how it should be. And if you got to worry about the lights, or your life, like your actual life could be endangered, like where you live, like you don't know if you're gonna make it. You don't have time for that. So I
Yeah,
get it.
no, and I get exactly where you're coming from. When you're hungry, uh, your priorities are definitely impacted by that. I was having that conversation, I think yesterday. Circumstance dictates so much of how you receive certain things. But on that spectrum, I would argue that valuing the thinkers falls somewhere outside of that scope. And it is where it falls that addresses the people who you are speaking about, who don't have the capacity, who don't have the time, who don't have the energy or the attention span because they're concerned about their well-being, taking care of their family possibly. The people I'm speaking of as far as valuing the thinkers are the ones that can do something significant and transformative, um, possibly as a whole, to help correct some of the imbalance that exists in our society. If you want to add on something, you're more than welcome to at this moment. But I completely what you said.
No, no, and those folks too. Yeah, I mean, like, cause I'm not a big fan of people kind of sitting in their integrity. I think we mentioned it. We were talking about this early this week at the racial equity learning community. I mean, that's people that have the ability to impact and have some change. You know that could do something but don't do something, but like feel good because like they think the right things or they know the right things to say. That's not cool either. But there's so many people. It's just like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit here. My little unit is good. I do some things here and there. So like the people that I get the chance to impact is cool. I could have some broader impact, but eh.
Yeah, you alluded to something that's necessary for some of that more transformative, relentlessly present potential for change to occur, and that's sacrifice. Like you said, some people are just going to be good where they're at, and I'll do a little, but I won't do a lot. Um, yeah, I don't have the time, so I'll just give the money. Whatever the case, that that checks that box for them to feel as if they contributed in some way, shape, or form. And it's not a judgment thing. It's whatever you do as a contribution should be appreciated. But what we're speaking about, in my um, opinion, lends itself to what Dr. West was mentioning in terms of hope in that small clip we just played. Hope is like dope. I always say that. I'm not a hope guy. I definitely have the same exact view and perspective that he communicated in that clip. You got to do something. The hope is in the action to me. If you're just sitting around hoping and talking about hope, then where's the action behind it? Be the hope is what he said, and I think that's actually a functional thing. It
Yeah.
requires your energy and your presence. Go ahead, man.
Right. If enough people are doing that, then it happens, right? Because like the healthy way to think about it, and our good friend Fatima Saleh, Dr. Saleh said, if you think about it as like a big boulder going up a hill, and you're just supposed to be pushing that boulder up a few centimeters, do your centimeter, but don't stop for that couple centimeters you're supposed to push it, because somebody's coming right behind you to keep pushing. And if you have enough people repetitively, consistently pushing it a few centimeters at a time, then it eventually gets up there. But if you take the attitude that you got to be the person to take the whole damn rock up the hill, that's not the way. That's not the right way to look at it. It's a collective.
Absolutely. It is Sisyphus that is the, I think, Greek mythology of the guy whose sole purpose is pushing this boulder up this hill. And one of my professors in terms of pedagogy use that as what we do as instructors. Push that boulder. You don't necessarily know what the reward is supposed to be or why you have to do it, but it is an act that requires your energy and attention and some parts of you that you may not know you have to endure that eternal pushing of that boulder. Um, Bob, I know we got to see Dr. West in person, and you have plenty to contribute. But I'm going to let Mike interject since he's back for the first time or back for the last time. However you say that thing when somebody makes a return after a while away. Good to have you back, man. Give me your thoughts and ideas on valuing of the thinkers.
It's good to be back, man. Thank y'all for all y'all do, man. If we talk about thinkers, I mean, my best thinkers are in these squares right here. If I was to give y'all flowers while y'all living, I appreciate the work y'all put in the communities. Appreciate the work y'all poured into me and other young people, man. Helping me to become the educator that I'm becoming or whatever else I'm becoming. We talk about the thinkers. Do they respect? Okay. Do they respect it? I have realized that in my last 9 weeks of becoming an educator, some do and some don't. Okay, son, I'm on the thing. Some do and some don't. But I stated last week to one of my teachers, we have to focus on the small wins to get to the big wins. And what I mean by that, the Braves didn't get the World Series by getting to the World Series. They got to the World Series by winning one game at a time. Vice versa, the Lakers won't get to the championship by winning that championship game. They win by bits and pieces. So what I mean by that is we would think that the work we're doing is not valued. They don't appreciate it. They're not listening. But our job is to plant the seed, let somebody else water it. When it comes to these thinkers, I know I'm that old fart that they don't listen to at school. I heard it today in class. It's like, dang, they didn't got rid of all the good teachers, the fun teachers. What is a good teacher, fun teacher? I'm not a good teacher, fun teacher because I'm about the rules, I'm about a book. As Brother Murray was speaking earlier, about the new music and stuff. Okay, I go to class and I play Les Brown or Eric, the speaker Eric or Trent Shelton, something positive. And the first thing they'll say, I want to hear some Young Boy. I said, I can't gain nothing from Young Boy. I can't gain nothing from Young Baby, whatever these other rappers is. They're mentioning a rapper. I'm like, I cannot gain nothing from one of those rappers, but I can gain something from Les Brown, Eric, Tony Gaskins, Trent Shelton. I can gain something from this. Now, when I say that, do I get the response that I want? No. But I keep planting that seed. Every time I go into a class, I turn my laptop on to what I want, not to what this student's going to dictate that I'm going to have in this classroom, because I am setting the atmosphere. Do they respect the thinkers? No. But that's me and you. I have one student, and that's my job, is to at least play a big impact in one student's life. That came to me and has made a big 360. I'm on the phone, son. I see you. that's made a big impact. I've made a big impact in his life through believing in him. So, when I say do they respect the thinkers? Not all, but some will, and some do. So I keep pouring, and we keep. What our job is to keep giving the knowledge. That one day they'll utilize that knowledge. Because you, each one of us in these squares are one of the person that never respected the thinker. Like back a couple years, I've never respected us in these squares, but I respect y'all because y'all are my mentors, y'all are my coaches in life. I use what Brother Felton says all the time. Take feelings out of it. Student be like, I feel this. No. Take your feelings out of it. I turn into you, but I appreciate that because I respect our thinkers. I like how you think, Brother Felton, Brother Merle, Brother Rob, even the coolest man in the room, Brother Danye, it's just the swag, but it's growth though. I had to grow to get to that area. It didn't happen overnight. That's why I'm learning how to be the man. We had before I got off here, we was talking about the man you became. I said the man I'm becoming. I know you remember that topic we had. It's the man I'm becoming on a daily basis because I'm growing and learning every day because I'm learning from y'all thinkers. I'm applying what y'all got to my daily life. Rest in peace to Mama Portia. She always told me, if it's not going to happen, don't worry about it. Just volunteer. Just give. Just do what it's going to take, and that door will open one day. So do they respect the thinkers? No, but keep pouring into these young ladies and young men, and one day they will.
Man, glad to hear that you've embraced your role in the boulder pushing uphill, the Sisyphus analogy. Just keep on pushing, man. And as you state, it'll resonate when it does with some, and some it won't. Funny side story in terms of the music. When I was substituting in Durham, especially at high school, they would all, can we play some music? Can we play some music? And I'd say, if you can play a song that does not have the N word in it, doesn't harmonize the N word, sure. And without fail, they could not do it. And I would stop them every time, and I'd say, well, now I get to play a song. And every time it was their turn, they could not do it. So it's not about art, so to speak, all of the time, because the excuse for so many, I think, so much wasted talent these days is that's my art. There's a responsibility to that ability to communicate on a mass level, on a grand scale. There's a responsibility. And if you're going to put out something that there's hard to find value in, is it really art? There's a question for someone who would debate me on the artistry and the usefulness, as you state, Brother Mike, the usefulness of some of these artists that exist these days, the babies and the other babies and the whoever else is that I just don't even pay attention to anymore. I don't devalue you as a person. You have a platform, and in some instances, it seems that there is a willful deniability, or a willful denying of the responsibility that comes with that platform. And the excuse is, it's my art. Bob, coming to you now. Tell me your thoughts on the valuing of the thinkers, and take your
time. Y'all have said so much, and I the stuff that y'all have said on this topic is substantial, and I will also say really remarkable, because each of the three of y'all have parsed this out in a bit of a different ways. And you're all, I think, absolutely on point. Meryl's points about, the people that are struggling, that are hungry, that are trying to feed their kids and get them this and get them that, or just trying to figure out how to live. that's where their heads are. They can't be thinking about the thinkers. Felton, your point about your population that you're thinking about is the people that can actually do something about it. I mean, are they paying attention to the thinkers? But Michael talking about students and young people and so forth, are they paying attention to the thinkers and so forth and so forth? And I think back to the conversation or the time with Cornel West, he's talking about love. And when we talk about or think about thinkers, Michael talks about the people on the squares. They're thinkers from his perspective and for him. And Michael knows we care about him. Michael knows that there's love in this room for him, and he can trust that. And at school, Michael is demonstrating to the students that he cares about them, that he is intentionally stepping aside from authority and control and power into a realm of care. That creates an environment of compassion and love that creates the opportunity for listening and for appreciation. The venue for Cornel West's talk this afternoon is about 2,500, 2,700 capacity. And I would say it was probably half full. That's disappointing. Though that's not a bad turnout, it's still half full. And it's Cornel West. Why do we have a prominent venue free to attendees? All you got to do is register so we can keep account of where do you stand relative to capacity. And we've got a venue that's half at capacity. What does that say to how do we listen to our thinkers? What does that say? That was not a Wake Forest, it was a Wake Forest hosted event, but it was not only accessible to Wake Forest people, it was accessible to anybody who could drive there to get there. So why do we have half capacity for somebody like Cornel West? And when we have colleagues of Cornel West in the room, a part of the inviting population and so forth, why? What does that say about, are we listening to our thinkers? Another comment about Cornel West, what's his agenda? His agenda is not the agenda of the preacher of a megachurch, as was talked about today. His agenda is speaking truth. His agenda is speaking his beliefs. That's his agenda. It's not a contrarian agenda. It's not a money motivated agenda. So we're in Winston-Salem. We have 1,300 people. He's the guy that we're there to see. He's the guy that they're there to listen to. I shouldn't say see. They're there to listen to. And he is a compelling and powerful voice with no other agenda than love, compassion, kindness, justice. Somehow the people that have power, I worry, are not the people that are listening to the thinkers. They're more focused on controlling and maintaining the power, controlling and maintaining their wealth, controlling and maintaining a system that benefits them. And until that changes,
yeah, we keep pushing the boulder. And I don't know, and we had a good conversation as we departed, and that's a part of it. The work continues. It's in perpetuity. We just try to leave it a little better than we found it. But yeah, great observations, Bob. And Cornell is a diamond in the rough, right? What can we make, and this is a rhetorical question, but what can we make of how awesome it had to have been to be in the same time existence, the same human existence in time with thinkers of the caliber of James Baldwin and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Medgar Evers.
And let me add something, because I met James Baldwin and I had the opportunity to have one-on-one conversation with him, just the two of us, back when I was probably 19 or 20. And James Baldwin is possibly the angriest black man I've ever known. And angry, tormented. So at 18, well, at 19 or 20, maybe 21, no, probably 20 or 19, I'm having this conversation with this highly tormented and angry black man who at the same time is as compassionate as any human being I've ever been around. And the anger was an anger. White people don't like black angry people. They don't like them. It scares them. James Baldwin didn't scare me. I listened to him. I heard him. And that into itself was transformative, I have to say. Because to this day, when I hear angry people, I can still listen to them. And it's really hard to this day for a lot of white people to listen to angry black people. They don't so often. And if they would hear reason and fairness and legitimacy and all of those sorts of things. And yet for some reason, there's this bang. And I really faced that firsthand, I guess in the summer of 2020 here in Greensboro, looking at the white reaction to protests and so forth, a consequence of the George Floyd situation and all of that was going on that summer. And white people just want, when I say that, I don't mean all white people. I'm just saying there was such a white people just wanted to be not in the same part of town where the protests were going on. Oh, if it's going on over there, I need to stay away. If it's a friendly shopping center, I need to stay away. If it's at Wendover, I need to stay away. If it's, it's a hands-off thing. Where is the listening? Where is the listening?
Yeah.
And in that sense, I would call the protesters, the true protesters, the activist protester here in Greensboro, the leaders, the thought leaders. I would consider them the thought leaders in that space and time. And
there's an element that I want to unpack really briefly, and that's the idea of anger. Justifiable anger, levels of frustration that come across as anger, because in essence, as you just mentioned, the country is not listening.
And that's what I kept saying then was just listen.
Listen.
Just listen.
Now, I think you attended, Bob, and I did that presentation, LSU virtually, speaking about David Walker's appeal. And David Walker writes this wonderful document in 1829, I believe. And he pretty much is asking that white America listen then. Just listen. We don't want revenge. We don't want to change the dynamic of who's slave and who's not. Just listen. If you would only listen, if white America would only listen. So we're still dealing with that type of energy, that type of situation, nearly 200 years later. And that's unfortunate. I want to unpack one other thing before we begin to wrap up. And I'm fairly certain you guys have some other thoughts that you want to share. But I have to highlight this, and it's going to take me off of one of the things I wanted to say because, Brother Mike, you said something that resonated based on some things that Cornel West shared this evening. You said something about people in the squares being your mentors. Something that Cornel West mentioned this evening was in line with understanding the difference between a role model and a mentor. And he was saying how some young people see somebody on TV and say, that's my role model. And he said that you don't even know them. You don't know them. And he said the mentor is someone you can reach out and touch, someone you can spend time with, someone you can say to, I'll be back to talk to you later. I'll call you. I'll spend some time this evening arguing, finding common ground, all of that, those things that take place in a true interaction that has levels of intimacy to it that are more impactful, a sustained presence. So I did want to throw that out there because it was awesome to hear you say that, and to understand that dynamic is something that was communicated earlier that is worthy of some attention and being valued. Mentor is totally different. I told Bob later on after that comment was made, I don't even remember the last time I used the word role model. The words role model. I definitely think more of the mentor-mentee type situation. But yeah, just with that in mind, we can go around the space. You can talk about that part of it because I feel like I needed to highlight it. We can also just bring in your thoughts and we can further unpack this thing. The other aspect, if you want to entertain it, was about that contextualization piece. And you're not obligated to respond to all of these things, but just, say what's on your mind. It is the contextualization piece of this argument, and this topic exists in my mind in our lack of ability to truly attempt to do contextualization. The soundbite society we in, the false equivalencies that exist, both positive and negative, the hypocrisy on both sides of the aisle. There's so much that eliminates our ability to truly contextualize how we get to where we are at certain points. I think it's an extreme detriment. So feel free to have a whack at all of that. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation thus far. I've been edified. Mike, I think, something you alluding to that I think is critically important. And my grandmother would always say, Portia was a strong proponent of this always be learning. There's no reason not to be learning. And I mean, up until the last day of your life, you should always be learning. Mike, I'm gonna come to you first. Just unpack the conversation, even your thoughts, and see where you end up.
I wanted to touch on what Brother Merrill was saying earlier, and I go through this now, dealing with youth. And as Brother Bob touched back on, it's kind of hard for a person, and I always say this too, because I think I told y'all one time when I was walking downtown Greensboro, and where the less fortunate or the homeless are, I don't ask them how they doing because I know how they doing. I say, hey, or hi, because it's crazy to ask you how you doing. I know your condition, so I know how you doing. So we saying, how can I tell someone that's hungry about something and they got their stomach growling? So they're not listening. They want food. So it's kind of hard to deliver something to someone and they're hungry. It's just like the youth, as we were talking about the role models and mentors. Their role models are these rappers, these dope boys, these negative people. So they're tuned into them. I turn on Eric Thomas. Okay, we'll find apples. I turn on Eric Thomas. They don't want to hear Eric Thomas. That's not their role model. I'm going to get apples. 1 minute, son. They don't want to hear Eric Thomas because he's not talking what they want to hear. The mentor thing has changed now. You got to be talking their lingo, their type of style, but they don't understand that that's going to fade away eventually. Like what they're talking is not going to advance you in life. I tell them, young baby ain't going to buy you no books or feed your family. Look, these little rap, whatever rappers they is, when they say, I said, that rapper ain't going to do nothing for you. You know what I'm saying? They get mad at me, but that's cool. I'm planting a seed. Somebody else is going to water it one day. My job is to plant a seed so this young lady or young man can grow. I had one today, get out of line. So what I done in a respectful way, I called my dean, I text my dean, silently got these two children removed from the classroom. You're not gonna disrespect me, I'm not gonna disrespect you, but you're gonna learn from me. So you're gonna learn that I don't tolerate mess. I don't tolerate disrespect. You can disrespect me, you thought you got away with it, but guess what? You're gonna learn a lesson from me that Mr. Harris will get me wrote up and I won't know that. So I have a different way of delivering things, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm becoming an educator and I'm growing as a man. And to close, I had to learn yesterday through growth of people. I had a parent aggravated because their student got rolled up by and he came to school aggressive yesterday. But I had to get growth because he tells me my child is excellent. He doesn't do anything. The old me would have responded and like, dude, ain't nobody's child perfect. But I just let that teacher, that parent believe that, think that, and let it just die down, escalate, de-escalate, so we can get away from that issue. But that goes to, I learned this from my wiser people as y'all, and as I rest in peace to Mama Portia and other great mentors in my life, that everything don't need a response. But because now, but that was me one day, not respecting the thinker, not respecting the elder, but something that thinker gave me it's in my toolbox now that I utilize it on a daily basis to become a better educator. The old me, I wouldn't be doing like y'all see hype right now. I would have been and went off while we on camera, but I'm learning how to grow and respect, things and be better with the tools that I've learned in my community. And thanks to y'all in these squares, man. I miss y'all. It's glad to be back. I'll be here on some Thursdays when I'm free. I'm glad, like I said again, I'm glad to be back and appreciate y'all helping me and guiding me, man. Each one of y'all in these squares, man, and those that are missing, Gregory and Julie, I appreciate that. I apologize that I missed that event on that Saturday, but my daughter's presence was there. But thank Brother Bob for taking them.
Yeah, man. Good words, Brother Mike. I greatly appreciate you being back in the squares. Definitely take a beat sometimes. It is not always the easiest thing to do. I am somebody who I'm a logic continuity guy, and I appreciate you recognizing how emphatic I am about removing one's feelings from certain situations. That does not work all the time, and I have to, just as you did, take moments to just say, this is not the fight I want to have at this moment. Let's just, I don't even like to use the term agree to disagree, but in certain instances, if that's what it needs to be called, then that's what we do. Bob, I'm going to come to you next, unpack a little bit more further, get some ideas exchanged, and we'll get up out of here in the next couple minutes, but going to let Meryl close the show.
Yeah, I have to tell the story about the time that Mike and I had lunch downtown, and Mike had leftovers, took them in a box. We were walking back to the cars, and there's a guy sitting hungry on steps. Mike didn't ask him how he was doing. Mike just said, "Hey man, would you like some food?" And had it in his box. And the guy was like, "Awesome." And we walked on. Thinking in leadership and love isn't something that's just for elders. Elders can be shit. Felton and I talked about a man this afternoon who died, 95 years old, but he was always an asshole. There is nothing about wisdom or kindness or compassion that's a function of age. It's a function of our choices, right? And so it would be nice to think that if we could realize that who we are models for everyone else. And if that would be what drives us, that would be a wonderful thing. But lots of people are about control, they're about power, they're about manipulation, they're about deceit, they're about greed. And so we have to parse that out. We have to parse that out. And how do we do that? How do we do that? And how do people that are stressed and under duress and so forth sort that out? How do people that aren't sort that out? People that aren't under those circumstances have a hard time sorting that out. We have a terrible epidemic of poor mental health. So how do we parse that out? And Cornel West, I think, said today, same problems, different year. Same problems, different century. Same problems, different. I don't know what we can do other than choose to be loving, compassionate, good models. That's what we as individuals can do. We can support each other. We can advocate for each other in things like city council campaigns, mayoral campaigns. We can do that. We can in nonprofit efforts, in school efforts, in you got a friend that is you do what you do. You do what you can do, and you participate. You actively choose to love and participate. And I think that if we choose to intentionally love and participate everywhere we have the opportunity and let the chips fall where they fall, we've done our best.
Yeah, the Sisyphus thing still rings true. It's just the eternal effort, but progress is made. Which way it measures, how much further you have to push that rock, who knows? But the progress is undeniable because you've been pushing this rock the whole time. Great words and greatly appreciated. Definitely want to make sure we understand that in all that we do, in any effort that you put forth in this short life that we all have, all of it's too short. 90 years is too short. 50 is too short. 30 is too short. Whatever it is, but in the time that you have, just try to be a contributor to the betterment of the place.
and press that envelope. Don't just do it.
Don't play it safe. Yeah, don't just play it safe.
Don't play it safe. Press the envelope. Just press the envelope.
I think when you mentioned Cornell's observation that the fight has been the same for so long, it continues in perpetuity. The time, the place, the mendacity is what he was speaking of. The outright lies and the mess that exists that we have to encounter and deal with is the same types of lies have taken place for so long. So the search for truth requires thought. Be intentional, and I think we all can be thinkers. We all can contextualize. Meryl, take us home with some of your last and final thoughts on the subject.
All right, I just had 4 quick thoughts. The first thing, I was laughing to myself when Bob was talking about the white folks that were angry at the protesters. I'm sitting here thinking about, white folks have terrorized and raped black people for 500 years, but scared of black folks, fussing at, at injustice. So that was funny to me. Number 2, to Mike's point, to dealing with the young people, keep going, bro. Sometimes the youth is wasted on the young. Our brains don't fully develop until 25. So, it's a struggle. I keep on thinking about, how to have some impact and some patience. So what you're doing, man, it's a godsend, man, that you're spending that time with these kids at these ages, man, that middle school age, man. God bless all the middle school teachers and folks, man. Goodness, that is just an age that my God. And the third thing was, and maybe this is a discussion we can have, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Felton, down the road, about James Baldwin and like the popularity and kind of like, why was he not a bigger figure? I wonder what part about him being homosexual had to do with that. I wonder, just kind of an open thought, because there's a lot of homophobia in a lot of communities. I'm not going to pick on a black community, but there's a lot of homophobia everywhere. And then the third thing, and the fourth thing is, congrats to Elaine Smith. Durham has a black mayor for first time in a long time. And I said it, yes. So congrats.
Rockland County too, Reedsville.
And Reedsville, Donald Gorham, that's right. That's right. Congrats, Donald Gorham. I forgot about that. I'm sorry. I forgot about that. My 5th grade teacher, Donald Gorham. Congratulations.
Yeah, I was
black man in Reedsville, black man in Durham.
And a shout out to Bryant Crisp for winning alderman in Gibsonville.
Yeah, right. My bad. Yep.
Power to the people, man. The people have spoken, man. You organized people beats organized money every time.
That's a good statement. I'll say this about James Baldwin's sexuality and his popularity. He was a pretty popular figure. He I think down the context of Cornel West's conversation about James Baldwin is based in some ways with the some of the, and I've used radical in quotes and loosely, some of the more radical thoughts that were put towards intellectuals of James Baldwin's caliber, and more of an indictment of the people he chose to associate with, some of the literaries and some of the white establishment that he was beholden to, the time he spent in Paris. A caveat or a carve out for you to kind of grasp as to why he may have been unpopular with certain other Black American thinkers of the time. He was a really good friend of, and I'm forgetting the author's name, but the guy wrote Nat Turner, romanticized version of Nat Turner's Rebellion. It was a white guy, and James Baldwin was like, that's my friend. And it was a complete and utter, it was eviscerated by so many scholars, this work that this guy produced, but James Baldwin was one of his dearest friends.
I will interject that James Baldwin would say that he felt a great rejection from the Black community because of his homosexuality.
I would not think that he would not say that, but it was not something that he wore on his sleeve at his highest levels of activity either. Much in the same.
It hurt him deeply.
So I didn't meet him or speak with him personally to know, but from what I understand, looking back historically, in the same manner that I always forget his name.
He felt an outcast for being both Black and being gay, and
that's what I've read. It's I just don't know.
That's undeniable. I'm not speaking of his personal feeling about the matter, but it was not an overt rejection based on his sexuality. It was never an overt reaction to his sexuality. Now, some of his nearest and dearest peers may have reacted a certain way, but he wasn't rejected by Martin Luther King. He wasn't rejected by Malcolm X. There's a really good documentary called I Am Not Your Negro that I recommend anybody watch that is centering James Baldwin. It's awesome. I'm probably going to recommend it to our RELC group. But Bayard Rustin.
No, and I think and he was not rejected. He was not rejected by the most Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, maybe, I don't know about that. Maya Angelou, not that tier of people, but mainstream.
But he was not an activist of that caliber, Bob. He was an academic and an intellectual. The documentary will definitely put that in better context for you. He considered himself more of an observer and almost a reporter of the upper echelon that, as you stated, did not reject him, the MLKs, the Malcolm X. He speaks in his documentary in terms of him being someone that observes and reports, not so much so as an activist. Now, Bayard Rustin, an activist or organizer, someone who was heavily involved with the March on Washington and all of those things, who also happened to be gay. There's some revisionist history that can muddy our thoughts on what they may have felt as in terms of rejection or ostracization from the African-American community. But it is important to me that we also recognize that the wearing of that on their sleeve is not to be ascribed to the way we view these the functionalities of the LGBTQ community and so on and so forth these days. It's a different level. Bayard Rustin saw civil rights as the first and the most important aspect, fixing the race issue. And he did foreshadow and see near the end of his life that the next step was recognition in terms of one's sexual preference and so on and so forth. Recognition of
and Felton, I'll just add, you know, there's like I come from on my mom's side like a history of educators in my family, and you know, so there's a lot of things that I was, you know, exposed to, and I'm just like, I was 19 years old at UNC, first time I ever heard of James Baldwin, and I'm just like, I wonder why that is, you know.
Well, I'll give you this, and this is a wonderful note to because we're kind of having this conversation without us having. So I had a class of college students who were wholly fascinated by Bayard Rustin, and they were just when I asked the question, why did they think they were not aware of him, and why the immediate light bulb moment is it was because he was a homosexual and he was suppressed and hidden and erased from history. I dispute that wholeheartedly, because I come right behind that and I ask, you ever heard of Bobby Seale? You ever heard of Fannie Lou Hamer? You ever heard of Medgar Evers? There are so many other activists, so many other players in that civil rights arena that don't necessarily get the elevation or the highlight. And I had a couple students that recognized that before I answered the question, and they said, there's so much we didn't learn in school. There's so much that we didn't learn in high school.
Well, but I didn't learn any of that stuff in school either. But I did know about, you know, Medgar Evers and the Panthers and Fannie Lou Hamer just through my family, but not James Baldwin, which is just weird to me. That's the part that I'm like, I know Reidsville, North Carolina, wasn't teaching me anything about black folks, but I was around black folks that know better. That
so
should have been. I wouldn't expose them. Like, why? So
You
that's
were
the
not
part in my
introduced to
head.
the fire next time.
No.
So, well, that's I guess another thing about that is a personal or subjective experience that has to be elevated there, because I knew who James Baldwin was, just like I feel like I knew who Michael Jordan was,
Yeah.
just because I paid attention to that arena. Now,
Yeah.
if you that's something to unpack. If you feel like your family was,
Yeah, baby. I mean, there's homophobia in my family. I mean, I know that for sure. So,
yeah,
I mean,
but the messaging is what matters. It's not about the messenger.
Well, I'm
James
just
Baldwin,
saying, I'm just making that connection. I know for sure there is in my family. So I'm just making that connection with like the Ellingtons and like,
And
I'm just wondering there's a connection there. So I don't know.
and that's a
I
true
find that
statement.
interesting. Go ahead, Mike.
That's a true statement. That's a true statement. But does that hold a value though? It's not the messenger, it's the message.
Yeah.
Even as a black young man, I am speaking to these young men that want to do this, sell drugs, do that. The message that I give to them, hey man, the only place you end up is in the penitentiary or in a graveyard. It goes over their head, under their feet, around them, not in their face, not like, oh man, you right, or hey man, let me hear more about it. Or, oh man, you just whatever. But it goes to that. It's not the message, it's the message.
It's the
But
mess.
and it's right here, it's the right here, it's the messenger and the message.
I completely get that perspective, Meryl. And I'm wondering if it's more, like I said, just a subjective experience. I can't. So like Eldridge Cleaver, I had to find him, and he's way more problematic. If you get into Soul on Ice and all of that stuff, he's way more problematic than Baldwin ever would have been. But he was definitely ascribed himself to be a super masculine guy. So he would, when you're arguing or debating with another person, at some point, it can become personal. So yeah, he could definitely have come for James Baldwin due to his sexuality. Yes. But there's so many other examples, and I Am Not Your Negro is
It's
wonderful.
great. I'm gonna have to watch that again.
Yeah, it's
and then
really
we
good.
Talked about, I didn't know about Charlotte Hawkins Brown until 2 weeks ago.
See? So how does that? So you get my point. When I bring so I'm not saying you have to know everyone, but when you get to that second, possibly third tier of persons involved in that you feel like you should have known, you just find out whenever you find out. Now, to the point about James Baldwin, he was not someone that was the in your face, I'm out here. He was intellectual, sir. He's debating at Oxford. He's in that realm, and he's an orator. He's awesome with the words. And I definitely recommend people read on a minimal level The Fire next time. I think it's an awesome work. Bob, glad you got to meet him. I think you're the second person I've talked to that said that they met him. And at the time, the other person mentioned that they met him, he was very sick. He was very ill. So he was short and curt. But as you mentioned, and as Dr. West spoke about, he took the moment. He was compassionate in the sense that he took the moment to really look that person in the face and say, I'm not feeling well if I got to go. But
yeah.
I appreciate it.
And the only thing I want to add is, don't forget that he was just a regular guy, not in addition to his being an intellectual. He lived in a world of family and human relationships, a normative family and human relationships place, not just his celebrity space, not just his intellectual space. And that was part of where the pain came from.
Yeah, very, very, very frustrated. Childhood was rough. And then he spent the last few years of his life in New York with an enormous amount of family members, if I'm not mistaken. He was the breadwinner for a good portion of his family. He took care of him. Yeah, man, ain't nothing like going overtime in this type of fashion, man. It's always a wonderful experience to spend this time. And when you find a point of conversation to unpack a little further, I don't mind doing it. Meryl, we definitely can revisit James Baldwin at another time, another date.
We need to have a Chappelle. We need to have a Dave Chappelle recap.
We need to go back to that. Yeah. We can. I nothing's off limits here. Grown folks business is about good communication, clear communication, and as Brother Mike says, taking your feelings out of it. Let's grow together. Let's grow together. All right, y'all have a wonderful evening, and appreciate everybody that stuck around, and appreciate those that'll catch us on the replay. Y'all take it easy. Have a good night.
Peace.